Cop steals from dead man, California. This police officer, Steve Holtz, went to conduct a welfare check on an elderly citizen in his 70s. He found that the older man had passed away from natural causes, but at the moment, a different thought occurred to him, that this could be an opportunity. For several days, Sheriff's veteran Steve Holtz would return to this home out of uniform to cart away numerous valuables belonging to the dead man. The frame shows him carting away items like a fan, gun safe, guns, and other items. The scary part is that this officer went to the dead man's residence at the last moments before he put on the uniform to go to work. Serve and protect for him must mean loot and plunder.
Cannot tell you how disappointed I am in the actions of Mr. Holtz. When he was called to the residence, it was to render aid and assistance, not to set himself up to commit further crimes or to victimize that family.
Worse still, he's on record as carrying out his theory in uniform on one occasion. Here's the good news. The law appears on track to deal with his behavior and he's no longer with the force, but your heart will break when you hear the dead man's neighbors say,
"I thought the police always the person we trust."
Cops planting evidence, New York police. The first thing these officers did was to stop these two guys for a seemingly legitimate reason, a broken taillight. Immediately the driver rolls down the window. You can hear them tell the occupants of the car, "Your car smells like marijuana, so we're going to check it. If there's nothing in the car, then you're good to go."
The car smells like marijuana, so we're going to check it, alright? I fixed it. There's nothing in the car, you'll be good to go, alright?
They were commanded to get out of their vehicle, and despite pleas from the guy in the passenger seat who was stabbed only a week ago with a bandage to show for it, he was forced to step out of the car. The driver refuses to hand the officer his jacket to be searched, and the officers immediately push him to the ground and handcuff him. He's in pain, having only just undergone surgery a week prior. The officers begin to search the jacket in the car, and it's beginning to look obvious that they won't find a thing.
Searching the rest of the car?
Yeah, we gotta find something.
They grow more desperate as it becomes obvious they won't find anything. He even admits it to his partner, and you can see the desperation in their eyes.
See nothing.
It's alright.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The officer plants a bit of weed on the cup holder in the front seat, and in a few minutes the officers claim to have found weed flakes all over the jacket.
A little bit of weed.
There's flakes everywhere though.
Yeah, no, he had weed. You could see his weed here.
The unlucky passenger is taken to the hospital and for 5 days was cuffed to his bed and later charged to court where he pled guilty just to avoid jail time. Worse still, these cops are still out there working as police officers. Parole officer caught planting evidence, Buffalo. When the parole board felt Anthony Davis, the man in the red shirt, wasn't in full compliance with parole regulations, they sent officers to perform a search of his home.
My man, you said that wasn't your gun? How come you got 22 ammo in your room?
He's on parole after serving jail term for a drug conviction. First they say they found 2 vials of drugs in Davis's room, which made them even more eager to search. Soon they found a loaded .22 caliber gun in a common area of the house, and after that a .22 caliber bullet is found on Davis's TV stand right inside his bedroom. But here's where it gets interesting. The man who appears to be finding all these hidden gems was State Officer Eliza Rosario. The body cam footage shows what really happened. Officer Rosario planted Davis's ID badge on this TV stand and takes a picture of it for evidence.
So he submits 2 photographs into evidence of the same TV stand. One is with the bullet without the prison ID. One is with the bullet with the prison ID.
It was overkill from the officer who sought to make the case against Davis airtight. He's currently on administrative leave, and Davis continues to enjoy some freedom. Coin flip cops, Georgia. The woman sobbing in the back of the squad car was arrested for reckless driving. She's distraught and undergoing serious discomfort, but here's something she doesn't know. If the coin had landed differently, she wouldn't be in the back of the squad car.
This is tail, right? Yeah, so really, 23.
Her arresting officers had not recorded her speed. Instead, they flipped a coin. Heads, we arrest her. Tails, she goes free.
So I got too fast for, let me write this down. Too fast for conditions. Reckless, is it reckless? Yeah, you can do reckless.
It lands on tails and she was arrested. Go back a little and watch the moment the woman was stopped.
You know how fast you were just going, ma'am?
I'm so sorry, I'm late for work.
How apologetic she was, but despite that, she was arrested on a coin flip. Jailer in cahoots with inmates, Texas. The prison system is flawed. We've always known this.
Moody, I understand that you've offered your resignation. Is that correct?
Yet each time we come across instances of jailers adding prisoners in the continuance of their criminal lifestyles while in prison, it hurts afresh. This jailer was caught smuggling phones into the cells of some prisoners. He wouldn't submit a resignation letter and the sheriff is forced to fire him on the spot.
So let me just make it easy. You're fired. you're no longer an employee here. You've betrayed the trust of every citizen that we have the privilege to serve. So as of this moment, you're under arrest. Well, you're going to be cuffed. First thing what you do, stand up and take that uniform shirt off.
Watching him remove the police uniform is deeply satisfying. Another evidence-planting officer, Los Angeles. This body cam footage captures a police officer allegedly planting a small bag of drugs in this black man's wallet. It's such a subtle move, you may miss it. Watch out for that tiny green bag as the officer slides it in or out of the wallet. Here's the really interesting part. The officer motions to his partner, showing him the tiny pack and gesturing clearly. Moments later, he pulls it out of the victim's wallet like a magician performing a magic trick. One of the cops has already been taken off active duty pending investigations into the incident. Fine for radar detector, Montreal. In this case of blatant extortion, this police officer stops this driver and looks into the car for a moment. He asks about something inside the car and the driver says it's a radar detector. The officer, without missing a beat, says that's a $600 fine. You pay me now or you get detained.
$600 fine for that.
Is it really?
I get to seize your car. I get to seize it. And since you're not from here, you have to pay me now or else you get detained.
The casual nature of it all and the way in which the driver becomes scared instantly, apologizing and saying he doesn't know, means the officer could easily have gotten away with this extortion if he pressed on.
We're here for one day. We're going back today, sir. Well, we plan to at least.
But seeing that the boys had their camera on, he retraces his steps quickly and advises the driver to hide the radar detector. See how easy it was? Cops holding cops accountable, South Carolina. Following the reports of a man banging on a door, this officer responds to the call and quickly whips out his weapon, ordering 2 black males to get on the ground. You can already feel the excessive use of force coming from the tone of his voice, and he doesn't disappoint.
Get on the ground! You! Burgundy shirt! Get on the ground! Over here!
He moves forward, and as one of the individuals being ordered was still trying to comply with that order, the officer puts his foot on the man's back, causing his head to hit the pavement. The victim poses no threat. He wasn't resisting arrest and didn't possess any sort of weapon as both his hands were raised above his head, empty. More officers enter the scene and the commanding officer questions Officer Duke, who had applied force earlier.
And I thought it was a gun at first. I said, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. Had him at gunpoint. He's over here doing something like this.
He claims the man had a gun, had his hand in his pocket, and wouldn't comply with instructions, all of which are lies as this video clearly shows. Now here's where all this poor business offers a ray of hope. All the other officers who witnessed the event, a certain Corporal Smith and a sergeant, both didn't corroborate the lies Officer Duke told. They didn't lie to protect their colleague, which is refreshing to see. There's another refreshing moment when one of the victims asks Officer Duke for his card and he says the department doesn't issue cards. Another cop was quick to correct that lie and you can hear her voice in the video.
I don't have one now. We don't have one. They don't give us cards.
Okay, what's your badge number?
1059.
Let me see if I can get my phone.
Hold on, we have cards.
Hold on, we have cards, as she whips out a card and hands it over. But the best news comes a few days later when Officer Duke was officially fired from the force. Bogus charges, Utah. We can't tell why she's doing this, to improve her arrest records or to make herself look good. We can't tell, but here's what it did. She stops drivers, finding a bogus charge to pin on them, and arrests them. In the footage above, you see Officer Steed administer the breathalyzer test on this driver. It's clear that the driver passed every bit of the series of tests with flying colors, yet she was arrested for a DUI. The charges were dropped after the driver's blood was tested and found to have no trace of alcohol in their system.
We have a culture of corruption that occurs here. The stories are just rampant.
Another driver claims Officer Stead arrested him for speeding.
She said she clocked me at 73. I said fastest I was going is about 62.
Her behavior has brought the department under public scrutiny with a class action lawsuit set in motion against her by all the drivers she's arrested on bogus charges. Switching evidence, Arizona. Follow closely the events taking place in this courtroom. While the defense lawyer is busy with her defense, an officer walks up and begins to snoop through the files on the defense table. At first it was subtle. He was standing and reading in a pseudo-clandestine manner. Soon he bends, picks a paper out of the file, and hands it over to another cop. The lawyer is flabbergasted. You can see it on her face. This is a complete mess and you wonder what the job of the police was in this case. The cops probably have something to hide. Whether it's for them or for the man on trial, we don't know, but it's obvious they have something to hide here. Cop plants drugs on innocence. Why is former Sheriff's Deputy Officer Webster in court? 67 counts of racketeering, fabricating evidence, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled substances.
The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
While he calmly states that he didn't plant the drugs, the video you're about to watch says otherwise. During random traffic stops, Officer Webster plants and discovers random drugs in people's cars. To hide his behavior, he manages to delete specific body cam videos that incriminate him, but here's one in which he didn't think that the evidence was incriminating enough. The case of Teresa. When he stopped her, he was polite, chatting and laughing. She steps out of the vehicle and stands behind it, allowing the officer to conduct his search. Watch closely to see the small bag of drugs in the officer's hand just before he slips on his gloves to begin his search. When the officer claims to have found the small bag of drug besides a soup, the woman accepts ownership of the soup which she had used to eat yogurt and categorically states that the drugs are not hers.
How about this, son?
That is not mine. No, sir.
The prosecution testified that the officer was ambitious, hoping to move quickly to narcotics. He was found guilty on 19 charges ranging from misconduct to racketeering and was sentenced to 12.5 years in jail. Wrongful detention for Aurora woman, Colorado. The pain this mother experienced here is something that had her traumatized for a few weeks. A mother driving with her child in the backseat suddenly has cops pointing their guns at her face, demanding that she steps out of the car. She was forced to lay flat on her stomach by the side of the road. An officer puts a knee on her back, handcuffed her, and detained her before asking about her car, which matched a description of a stolen vehicle.
In my head, I was like, I know I didn't do anything wrong. It has to be a mistake on their part. This is crazy. I was scared. I was like, I better just do as I'm told.
The woman had just picked her car up from the depot, and this is merely a clerical error where someone had marked the car as stolen instead of repossessed.
That apology is not going to take, the fright away from me. It's not going to do much for me. They already traumatized me. I can't drive down Colfax or any street for that matter.
When you manage to wrap your head around the madness in this video, you'll feel as angry as I do, especially when you remember this woman had her child in the car throughout the duration of the unlawful detention. Officers seek bribes, Nigeria. The uncouth and shabbily dressed police officer is brazen in his demand for a bribe from a Spanish national who just arrived in the country from Benin.
I crossed to Nigeria today. What do you pay for us? I don't have anything yet. I came. Don't tell me that.
The officer blatantly asks for something, and when the foreigner says he doesn't have any cash yet except for his credit card, the officer presses on, "Hold on, we need you to give us something somehow."
Yeah, but I still didn't change. I have my credit card. When I get to Lagos, I take money, but I didn't bring. I came today.
You can see the other officers harassing a motorist, their guns at the ready as they run after a silver car, forcing it to park, probably due to the same thing this cop is doing to the rider who just came in from Benin. Shameful doesn't begin to describe it.
I have to go. I don't have cash.
Police officer arrested for theft, Texas. You'd expect a police officer to be the one going after a thief. Instead, this is a police officer being arrested by mall security for theft. She had stolen and concealed fragrance from the store, but before she could get away with it, security personnel catch up to her.
I went out there to use the phone.
Can I get a sergeant to my location?
Mall staff narrate the events that led to the arrest, explaining how an associate had called to say the woman was walking away with a product.
The Macy's bag she had, was that from a prior purchase, or did she pick that up from a...
I asked her, and she said that she picked it up from a rack.
Okay, so it's not...
It's that bag.
It's not like she had bought something else.
They looked at the surveillance film and found her concealing fragrances, and when she was confronted, a struggle ensued. The distant security footage with the mall security shows that at the end, the officer navigating the mall, and it was from the video that the mall security swung into action.
So we're out that's the main mall, right? That line, the little painted line there is the threshold?
Yeah.
Or the tile line there, I guess? Yeah. Gotcha.
The officer was handcuffed by the store security with her badge and gun taken away. According to her, she was struggling to protect the badge and gun from the security men. That's a funny thing to say, especially after you just trashed the reputation of the badge and smeared the good name of the police force. Blackmail and sexual harassment, New York. An officer in Monroe County had recently arrested a woman, and in this recording, we hear the gory details of the officer's request to the helpless woman. She was arrested for drunk driving and drug possession. You can see her being arrested by Officer Miller in the footage. She made bail, and a few weeks later, she got a phone call from that same cop asking her to meet him at a parking lot late at night. She went to meet him, but not without a plan B. He put her in his car and drove out to a dirt road and handed her a light beer. The cop says he can get rid of her pending charges simply by talking to the DA.
Well, I know how I can get rid of them.
Well, how is that?
Well, I gotta just talk to the DA.
Well, I know that's how you can get rid of them, but me, on the other hand...
That's up to you.
He then says the only reason he gave her the beer was for leverage.
The whole reason I gave you the beer...
Uh-huh.
Is leverage.
Oh. What leverage would that be?
Well, I got a unit sitting over there.
So what are you trying to do? You trying to blackmail me or something?
Yeah.
Oh, it ain't gonna work.
It won't?
No.
I'm just messing with you.
Okay.
Then he goes on to ask to see her breasts, maybe even just the one. Then he goes ahead to ask for a blowjob, which the victim refused to offer. The officer has been suspended and will face disciplinary action. Don't water your neighbor's plants, Alabama. Listen to the conversation as this black pastor waters his neighbor's plants.
They're saying that, is that your vehicle? It's not? The neighbors?
He identifies himself as Pastor Jennings and lives across the street.
They're saying that this vehicle is not supposed to be here and you're not supposed to be here.
Who's saying it?
They called about it. I don't know who called.
I'm supposed to be here. I'm Pastor Jennings. I live across the street.
When they asked him for ID, he says he won't since he hasn't done anything wrong. The pastor's agitated now. His emotions riled up by the suspicion of wrongdoing when all he's done so far is water some plants. He walks away from the cops and they go after him, grab him, and put cuffs on him. One of the cops calls a 1015, police code for prisoner in custody.
Just calm down, okay?
No.
Stop.
I like this.
Okay. We're just trying to talk to you and see.
Now, a neighbor comes out to corroborate the pastor's story, explaining that the man is friends with the owners of the house and might be watering their plants at their behest.
Do you know that gentleman back?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Does he have
lives right there.
Okay, does he have permission here to be watering flowers?
He may because they are friends.
Okay.
And they went out of town today, so
Right.
he may be watering their flowers.
Okay.
It'd be completely normal.
Ultimately, the pastor maintains that he was racially profiled. After they've heard all this, the man remains in cuffs and they question him, maintaining their 1015. You can hear the officers discuss what to do with the man. One suggests arresting him for disorderly conduct for refusing to obey cops, all of which are bogus charges if you've watched the video to this point. The more you watch, the more you realize the man wasn't really wrong when he felt that he was being racially profiled. These cops could have simply freed him, but they kept him handcuffed and continued to think of charges that would allow them to lock him up. Violent arrest. The only place you can see something like this is in the farcical wrestling bouts organized by the WWE. This officer grabbed the man who isn't resisting or fighting the cop, then lifted him over his shoulder and slammed him into the asphalt. The victim looks pretty mellow. His facial expression, his gestures, and everything about him showed he wasn't doing anything to warrant the body slamming he received at the hands of the cop. He is, of course, suing the deputy and sheriff's department for negligence. It's appalling to learn that the only punishment that the deputy has received so far is desk duty. Before we play the last clip, I'm sure you've been enjoying everything so far, so why don't you consider subscribing to the channel? We post 2 new scary videos every week, so subscribe and click the notification button so you can stay up to date with new releases. Breaking or upholding the law, Philadelphia. A police officer has been caught shoplifting in his full police uniform. He walked into the store in the morning around 10 a.m. He simply walked to the cooler, picked an item out of the cooler, and instead of walking to the cashier to pay his bill of $249 plus tax, he just walks out. The cashier alerts the owners, who run out of the store and try to get the cop to pay for the item, but he wouldn't be bothered. Instead, he walked off without paying. According to the shop owner, he's been facing a lot of issues of shoplifting, and he expects the police to be allies and help protect them instead of piling on and becoming a part of the problem.